2021 NBA free agency class has definitely been an interesting one. We've seen so many great moves this offseason with teams getting better and transforming their rosters, and some teams haven't been able to do anything with their roster. So, in this video today, I'm going to be discussing the three biggest winners of free agency and three biggest losers so far. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. Starting off with the number one winner of this NBA free agency this season is the Chicago Bulls. Come on now. The Chicago Bulls have definitely transformed this entire roster. Chicago Bulls last season only won 31 games, and they were the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference. But the Chicago Bulls team has definitely made some great moves this offseason, and that's of course signing Lonzo Ball to a 4-year $80 million contract, and also as well trading for DeMar DeRozan on their roster, who is a former All-Star and still a guy who's more than capable of averaging at least 20 points per game. He's even a better playmaker now. What he's going to do is provide that veteran, that leadership to this Bulls team that they need, and a guy who's just in some deep runs in his NBA career in the playoffs. So what he's going to be able to provide is many great things for the Chicago Bulls team, especially another star presence, another scoring option, another playmaker. This team is going to be really great. And of course, we all know about Lonzo Ball and what he's going to definitely contribute to this Bulls team. But not only that, but they also signed Alex Caruso, who is another very good player, a 3-and-D player to be at that. Man, the Chicago Bulls team has definitely made some really big moves this offseason in free agency. Their roster is looking really, really good and coming into next season. There's no doubt in my mind, with this roster that they have now, this team is going to go to the playoffs. The loser, the first loser of free agency, and that is the Portland Trailblazers. Some people may not agree with me or not, but let me explain. And I think you all should surely agree with this. But the Portland Trailblazers this offseason has not really made any big moves at all. They lost Carmelo Anthony in free agency, and Carmelo Anthony was actually a pretty, big plus on this Portland Trailblazers team. He had a huge factor on this team with his scoring, his three-point shooting. He had a pretty decent year with the Blazers, and he averaged pretty good numbers in the playoffs as well. So losing out on a guy like Carmelo Anthony to the Lakers for this Blazers team is just another really bad move for this Blazers team. Not only that, man, of course they fired Terry Stotts, who's been the head coach for a long time, but that was going to come either way. And they signed Chauncey Billups, and we'll see how he does, especially looking at his resume, but he still should do a decent job for this Blazers team. But also, of course, the only guy who they really signed in free agency, I believe, and I could be wrong, is Cody Zeller. Cody Zeller, from what I saw, is the guy who the Blazers got on a 1-year or 2-year deal. And I mean, it's Cody Zeller, man. Why are we talking about Cody Zeller right now on the Blazers? This makes absolutely no sense to me. This team is just going to be the exact same team that they were last year. An average playoff team at best. They were able to re-sign Norman Powell to a deal, which is a really good plus for this Blazers team because he came off one of the best seasons of his NBA career. But regardless of that, this team is still the same. And they have Damian Lillard still on this roster. And, well, Damian Lillard, we've been hearing trade rumors about him over this while. And they still haven't decided to pull the plug and rebuild this team, especially while Damian Lillard's trade value is still really high, and trade him away to a different team, and TJ McCollum as well. But this Blazers team is still going to be the same average little old Portland Trailblazers team. So we'll see what they do next year. Another winner of this free agency, the second winner, is the Miami Heat. Come on now, the Miami Heat re-signed Jimmy Butler to a max extension. They signed Duncan Robinson. They signed PJ Tucker. They got Markieff Morris as well in a 1-year deal. And they traded for Kyle Lowry without all of this being in the luxury tax. That's the most insane part about this Miami Heat team. They did lose Kendrick Nunn, but somebody was going to have to go anyway for the Miami Heat in free agency. But this roster is really good now. I mean, they were good already last year and the year before that when they made the playoffs and went to the NBA Finals. But now this team, getting Kyle Lowry, you're getting a guy who's been an all-star recently. He's still a guy who's more than capable of averaging at least 15 to 16 points per game. He is getting older, but this Miami Heat team is, in a win-now mode. And I believe that this Miami team will definitely have a much better season coming into next year with the roster acquisitions that they made and re-signing key guys on their roster as well. This Miami Heat team, they're going to definitely be a really, really tough team in the Eastern Conference next year. The second biggest loser in free agency so far is the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics this offseason really didn't make any big moves at all. First off, they lost Evan Fournier, which, Evan Fournier, I believe that really wasn't going to stay with the Boston Celtics anyway. But if they still were able to keep him on this roster, that would have been a huge plus for the Boston Celtics. But they let him walk away, and he was replaced by Josh Richardson. And Josh Richardson isn't a bad player at all. He's actually a pretty good player, great D&D player. Going to provide defense and offense on both ends of the basketball court. And they have him, but they also had to, trade for Al Horford, of course, when they got Kemba Walker on the roster. And, Al Horford, he's older now, and he's making a lot of money. So I don't believe that that's really going to be the best move for the Celtics moving on. And, they were even talking before about trading possibly Marcus Smart, but when the Bulls got Lonzo Ball, he decided to stay with the Boston Celtics. But the Boston Celtics, they haven't made any big moves this offseason. And what Danny Ainge reports have been saying is that the Boston Celtics are waiting more so for 2022 free agency, so they'll have enough cap space because they'll have Al Horford off the books, and I believe they'll have Josh Richardson, I believe, as well off the books. So they'll be able to go out and sign better guys for this Boston Celtics team. But you also got to think about the guys who they have right now on this team. They have Jaylen Brown, they have Jason Tatum, they have two really good players on this team that they can build around for the long term. But still, you want this team to be good now as well, and they can still go out and afford certain players still. But instead of trying to focus on what could happen next year, they need to focus on what they can do now to fix this team, especially since they came off a pretty bad season last year. Overall, the Celtics have not really made any moves this offseason, and their team is still basically the same, but maybe a little worse now. And the third biggest winner of this year's free agency class is the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks have made this roster better. Last year in the playoffs, this team, they surprised everybody to begin with, even making the playoffs. So that's a huge plus and an accomplishment for this New York Knicks team. But they went out this offseason and got better, especially on the offensive end of the basketball court. They added Evan Fournier, who we just recently talked about from the Boston Celtics, who's a great shooter, and he's going to definitely provide many aspects of his game for this New York Knicks team on the offensive end of the basketball court. But I'm not done yet. They were able to re-sign Derrick Rose and Alex Burks to deals, which were two really good guys on this team who contributed highly for this New York Knicks team, especially Derrick Rose in the playoffs. We can't say that enough. And they were able to trade for Kemba Walker now. Kemba Walker, as we all know, is a former All-Star player, that at his best averaged around 25 points a game, at the best and peak of his NBA career. But now he's going to this New York Knicks team as one of the best players on this roster. He's going to be a better scoring option, but Kemba Walker has been suffering from injuries these last few years, so we'll see how he definitely progresses as he goes to the New York Knicks, especially with his injuries and how good he can be, because last year on the Celtics team, he really wasn't the best player. Coming back from injury, he never really found his groove on this roster. But going to this New York Knicks team, hopefully he has a much better presence for this team because he provides what they need. They need more offense on this team. This team on the defense end of the basketball court, we all know how good this New York Knicks team is. But adding Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, these are two guys who are definitely going to help out this team on the offensive end of the basketball court tremendously. So hopefully next year Kemba Walker can stay very healthy and play at least 85% of the version that he was. And this New York Knicks team is definitely going to take a huge leap up into an even better direction. Not only that, but they also re-signed Julius Randle. And as we all know, Julius Randle is the guy that has the most improved next year because of the way he did play in the playoffs. But he still led this New York Knicks team to success anyway. Overall, this New York Knicks team, the fans of the Knicks, they should be very, very happy because they got out and they got better this offseason. And they will definitely make the playoffs once again and consistently with this new roster that has been built. So congrats for the Knicks. And the third biggest loser of NBA free agency so far is the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans, they lost Lonzo Ball, and he was replaced by Devontae Graham, which isn't really a bad piece at all. Devontae Graham is a really good player, and the Hornets will definitely miss him on their roster, but they have LaMelo Ball now, and they're building around him, so there's no need for Devontae Graham anymore. But adding him on this Pelicans team really wasn't a bad move. But looking at this Pelicans team overall, I mean, they do have Jonas Valanciunas, and he's definitely going to help out a bit. And they also got a really decent draft pick in Trey Murphy. But, you know, this Pelicans team, man, we've already been hearing reports that Zion has been unhappy with the organization in general. And you have him and Brandon Ingram, who are two really good players, but they have not really built a great roster around these guys. Keeping Lonzo was really one of the main focal points of this team. It should have been their main priority to begin with, because Lonzo provided everything that this Pelicans team needed, and he was part of their young core. He was part of their future, and they decided to let him walk away, especially he was a restricted free agent, so they could have matched any offer that any team went for him at, but they decided not to, and they let him walk away. And looking at this Pelicans team now, their roster is not really going to be good next year. They're going to still remain an average team at best. You have Zion Williamson, a guy who has the potential to be one of the best players to play this game. That's how good Zion is, the most dominant force that we've seen since young LeBron James, for crying out loud. But this guy is going to be a very talented player. He's already shown that. And you have not really done your job at all as a franchise to build a great roster around this guy. I mean, look at when they had Anthony Davis. They weren't able to do the same thing with him. And they only made 2 playoff appearances with Anthony Davis, even on the Pelicans. And you looked at Chris Paul and how good of an NBA career he's had. But his career was even better when he was off of the Pelicans, but at the Hornets during that time, still in New Orleans. But this management has not done a great job at really constructing this roster. And looking now, this team is not even going to be good next year. So this Pelicans team has some serious work to do. Because if they don't make many changes these next few years, Zion Williamson is going to be saying goodbye to the Pelicans. And Brandon Ingram as well. This free agency class has definitely been a huge one. I mean, many guys have re-signed the big deals. We've seen teams make great moves and teams just revamp their rosters in general. This free agency class has definitely been a good one, and we've heard many trade rumors and things that can happen, and there's still certain moves that can happen in this free agency. But right now, these are, in my opinion, the best winners and losers of free agency so far. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more basketball content each and every single week. Have a great day. Peace.